What is up, guys? Today we're gonna make some UK garage house drums. This is the beat that we're gonna make. I simply love this genre. I draw a lot of influence from the shuffle and swing of the drums in my own music. If you want to, you can download my Kickdrum sample pack with lo-fi punchy kicks. You can find the download link in the description. So let's get started. So UK Garage is all about the swing, and you have to go off the grid. So by going off the grid, your drums will get a more human feel and add some swing to them. You can use swing quantization presets in the piano roll, but I like to do it manually because I think I'll get a little bit more control, and I feel like it gives the drums some kind of random factor to it, so everything is not sounding the same. And in UK Garage, the swing is so important. So let's dive into it. Start by finding some good drum and percussion samples. Splice is great, but also use some of your own sample packs. If you have some packs with 90s house samples, they will be great to use. I like to find some short drum hits that don't take up too much space in the drum pattern. In that way, we can add more elements to the loop and get a really, really cool groove. The tempo of the project is set to 132 beats per minute. So this is the kick drum that I found for this project. It's a rather short kick drum, and I like to have a short kick drum because then I can have longer, sustained bass lines. Now you have to create a kick pattern that gives that kind of UK garage vibe. This is the pattern that I came up with. So if you take a closer look, we actually have some kick drums that plays the offbeat here, and also one playing the 16th note here. And if we pay closer attention, this is not hitting on the grid. It's actually pulled a bit to the right. So it gives that kind of groove that we need to. And I also duplicated this kick drum so I could turn down the volume a little bit and also make it shorter. And you can do that in the piano roll, but I like to visually see what's happening with my kick drums, and you can't do that in the piano roll. The next thing for our drum pattern is the snare and the clap. So the snare, it sounds like this. And then we have a clap. So I like to layer the snare and the clap so the sound gets a little bit more beefed up. So it sounds like this. And what you might notice is that you have these small rhythmic snare drums here. So if we play them. So if we take a closer look, this hit here is actually not playing very high velocity. And that's because I don't want it to be like this. I think that's way too high, so I'd rather have it a little bit lower in the mix. Just to give that kind of groove. And again, look at the grid. I'm really not having it straight on. If we have it straight on, it sounds like this. So it's a really, really subtle change, but it really adds up to the groove. And then the clap sounds like this. So also again, and this actually doesn't hit straight on the grid. And that's because the snare has some transient to it, and this clap also have a lot of transient to it. So I don't want these two samples to clash and fight for the transient. So I'll just move the clap a little bit ahead in time, so it's not hitting at the same time as the snare. And then you have these rhythmic claps here, and the velocity is also not really high up. So it's also just like a groovy thing. So together with the kick, they sound like this. So you can hear it's really starting to get that UK garage vibe, and that's mainly because of the swing. So again, the swing is that you don't have everything playing on exactly on the grid. You just move it a little bit to either side. And you should really experiment with it. Instead of just doing what I do, you should find the own style that fits your vibe. With the hi-hats, I tend to divide them into two categories. You have the open hi-hat and then the closed hi-hats. The open hi-hat sounds like this, and it's actually layered with this more transient hit. So together they sound like this. And with the pattern for the open hi-hat, it's just like a straight offbeat pattern, but then with this hit and this hit, it's just being shortened a little bit, so the sample is not playing like full on out. So it sounds like it's kind of stopping here, and I like that because it adds some kind of variation to the open hi-hat. And then you have the closed hi-hats. So these two samples are playing in the left and right stereo field, and this is mainly just to give it some kind of groove in the stereo field. So listen to all of the closed hi-hats together. So if you're on headphones, you can hear that it's also playing in the left and right stereo field. And here you can see the pattern for the closed hi-hats. So you can see they are slightly moved to the right, actually all of the hits. So the closed hi-hats are really carrying the groove, so it gets that kind of swingy, shuffly feel to the drum loop. So together with the closed hi-hat, it all sounds like this. So it really gets that kind of bounce to it. So with the rest of the drum samples so far, sounds like this. So we're really getting that cool vibe to the track right now. Moving on, we have the percussion loop, and the percussion loop is made out of a lot of different samples. So we have this one, like a low perk kind of thing, and it's panned to the left. Then we have this rim shot thing, panned to the right to add some stereo. And then we have this tambourine, also panned. Then we have the rim shot here. We have a conga, and we have some kind of tambourine shaker thing, and then a shaker. So all together, they sound like this. So if we take a look at the pattern, we have this. So as you can see, the shaker, it's also moved slight to the right with some of the notes. And then you have like the rest of the percussion stuff, and it's mainly not hitting on the grid. So all together, our drums sounds like this. So with this percussion thing, you really have to just play around with picking some samples that you really like and just playing around where you want to place them in the MIDI pattern. So the last thing I'm going to add to our UK Garage drum loop is some texture. And I found these two samples. And then this one. So if we have a listen to it, playing with the rest of the drum loop. I think they're a little bit too much in the mix, so I just applied some effects to them. So with this first texture thing, I added some EQ. Just to remove the low end and some of the top end. So I added this shaper box from Cable Guys, and it's doing some side chaining and also doing some panning of the sound. So with the sidechain, it's docking to the rhythm, and also with the panning, it's just moving in the stereo field. And with this other texture sample, I also added a shaper box, but this time it's not doing sidechaining, it's just doing some stuttering. I just put down the mix a little bit, and then you have also some panning just to the left and right. And then the next thing, I added some side chaining just to make sure that it was not clashing with the rest of the groove. so it's docking. And then the last thing, just to remove some of the low end and high end with an EQ. So together, the texture samples sounds like this. And together with the track, so the texture is really subtle in the mix, but if it's not there, it's kind of missing something to the drum loop. The drums are actually sounding a little bit dry, and that's because the texture is filling up some of the frequencies that the drums are not filling up in the mix. So let's have a listen. So it's really, really subtle, but if you have headphones on, you can really hear that it's adding some really nice ear candy and texture to the drum loop. And then we have a little bit of drum processing going on. So the first thing is this solid bus compressor, and it's just to glue together the drums. And as you can see, I'm not sending the kick to this drum bus. I'm actually sending the kick to its own low-end bus together with the bass. And that's because I don't want the kick drum to be affected by the same compressor and EQ settings as the rest of the drums. The next thing is this passive EQ. And it's just boosting the high ends a little bit because I thought that the drums were lacking a little bit of high-end information. So the last thing is this EQ, and it's removing some of the low-end frequencies from the other drums. So the kick drum and the bass have more room to play around with. And you can actually just might remove something more. Yeah, we could actually remove a bit more of the low end. So that's it. We just made a really, really cool UK garage house beat. And for the sake of it, I just made a small track so you can hear it in context. So let's have a listen to it. So to sum up this video, swing and moving things off the grid is key when you're making UK garage drum loops. Then choosing the right samples is also really important, and then you have to feel the groove while you're moving and shifting things off the grid. And then lastly, this is the most important thing, you should have fun while you make this. Thank you guys so much for watching this tutorial. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you liked the video. So I hope to see you in the next one. Peace.